Hugo Chavez, the charismatic leader of Venezuela, was born on July 28, 1954, in the small town of Sabaneta in the state of Barinas. Growing up, Chavez was deeply influenced by his grandmother, who was of indigenous descent, and instilled in him a strong sense of social justice and the importance of fighting for the rights of the oppressed. After graduating from the Venezuelan Military Academy in 1975, Chavez embarked on a career in the army. However, it was not until the early 1990s that he began to emerge as a political force in his own right. In 1992, Chavez led a failed coup attempt against the government of President Carlos Andrés Pérez, but his imprisonment only served to increase his popularity among the Venezuelan people. In 1998, Chavez ran for president and won a resounding victory, promising to transform Venezuela into a more equal and just society. Throughout his presidency, Chavez implemented a series of socialist policies aimed at reducing poverty and inequality, including land reform, nationalization of key industries, and the expansion of healthcare and education. Chavez was a passionate orator, and his speeches were renowned for their fiery rhetoric and populist appeal. He often spoke out against the United States and its influence in Latin America, advocating for a more independent and self-reliant approach to governance. Chavez also forged close alliances with other left-leaning leaders in the region, including Fidel Castro of Cuba and Evo Morales of Bolivia. Despite his popularity, Chavez faced a number of challenges during his time in office. His policies were often criticized for being too radical and for eroding democratic institutions. He was also accused of using his power to suppress dissent and to silence his political opponents. However, for many Venezuelans, Chavez remained a symbol of hope and a champion of the poor. His government's social programs helped to reduce poverty and inequality, and his commitment to anti-imperialism resonated with many in the region. Chavez passed away on March 5, 2013, after a long battle with cancer. His legacy continues to be felt in Venezuela and beyond, with many continuing to celebrate his contributions to the region's social and political history. Love him or hate him, there is no denying that Hugo Chavez was one of the most influential and controversial leaders of his time. His commitment to socialist ideals and his passionate advocacy for the poor and marginalized will long be remembered by those who knew him, and his impact on Latin American politics will continue to be felt for generations to come. "I am a man of the people, a man of my country." This quote from Chavez reflects his populist approach to politics. Throughout his career, Chavez emphasized his connection to the Venezuelan people, positioning himself as a champion of the working class and marginalized groups. This emphasis on the people helped to galvanize support for his socialist policies and his vision for a more equal and just society. The only way to save the world is through socialism, but a socialism that exists within a democracy. There's no dictatorship here. Chavez was a committed socialist, and he believed that socialist policies were the best way to address issues of poverty and inequality. However, he also recognized the importance of democratic institutions and processes. In this quote, Chavez is emphasizing the idea that socialism and democracy can coexist, and that socialism need not be synonymous with dictatorship. The United States appears destined by Providence to plague America with misery in the name of freedom. Chavez was a vocal critic of U.S. foreign policy, particularly with regard to Latin America. He saw the U.S. as a symbol of imperialism and oppression, and believed that its interventions in the region had caused significant harm. In this quote, Chavez is critiquing the idea that the U.S. has a moral obligation to spread freedom and democracy around the world, arguing instead that the U.S. has often used its power to further its own interests at the expense of others. "Let the dogs of the empire bark, that's their job, ours is to battle to achieve the true liberation of our people." Chavez often used animal metaphors in his speeches, and this quote is no exception. Here, he is referring to the U.S. as the empire and suggesting that its criticisms and attacks on Venezuela are simply part of its larger agenda. Chavez sees his role as a leader as being to fight for the liberation of his people, despite these external pressures and challenges. socialism has been discredited for a long time. It's time to talk about the future. This quote is somewhat paradoxical, as it is coming from someone who was a committed socialist. However, it reflects Chávez's recognition that socialism had become a somewhat tarnished term in many parts of the world, and that new approaches and ideas were needed to address contemporary challenges. Chávez believed that socialism still had a role to play, but he also recognized the importance of innovation and adaptation in the face of changing circumstances. We appreciate your support in watching our videos. If you enjoy learning about political, business, writer and science leaders' biographies and quotes, please consider subscribing to our channel and giving us a thumbs up to help us grow and continue bringing you valuable content.